Welcome to An Unconventional Life, a podcast where we share stories about the crazy 1% out there who earned their doctoral degrees and then went on to use them in crazy, cool, unique, and unconventional ways. Here's your host, astrophysicist turned teacher, author, dissertation coach, and more, Dr. Russell Strickland.
Hi, this is Dr. Russell Strickland, your host of An Unconventional Life podcast. Today, I have with me Dr. Preston Cherry, and Dr. Cherry is a man after my own heart. He has got one foot in academia and one foot in the sort of professional world. Dr. Cherry is an unconventional doctoral student, or at least he was, and he's going to share his story there. But currently, he serves as assistant professor of personal financial planning at the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay. He's the director of that program. He is also the founder and president of Concurrent Financial Planning, where he works with business owners and households to help them achieve life-money balance. We like to talk about life balance in various ways. I can't wait to talk with Dr. Cherry about that. Before we jump right in, I want to remind everyone that this episode is brought to you by Dissertation Done. At Dissertation Done, we help students help folks in two ways. One is if you're an adult doctoral student and you're about to start on your dissertation, you've already started on your dissertation, maybe you're struggling a little bit, maybe you're fed up with it and about ready to walk away, reach out to us first at dissertationdone.com/done, and we'll see if we might be able to see if you're a good fit for our Fast Track Your Dissertation coaching program, which gets students through the dissertation process a year or two sooner than their peers. It's an awesome program. If you're a good fit, reach out to us at dissertationdone.com/done. And if by chance you're not working on your dissertation right now, but you're out there living your unconventional life, you're an expert and you've got a message to share with the world, we can help you do that by writing your own book. We'll take you from a blank page to a published work that is strategically designed to help bring in customers, clients, and patients. Check us out at dissertationdone.com/book to find out more about that. Enough of the commercial break. Let's talk to Dr. Cherry. Welcome, Dr. Cherry. Thank you for joining me here today.
Dr. Strickland. I guess we'll just go on first name basis the rest of the way. But yes.
But I like to let folks know we're talking to Dr. Cherry here. It's
true.
On a professional basis.
Most definitely.
If you're like me, I grew up Russell, and that's what everybody calls me. But professionally, I try to stick to that doctor because once you earn it, you got to leverage it. You got to take advantage.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, I even have a license plate that says PDC Ph.D. So I tell people all the time the only reason I pursued a Ph.D. was to have a cool license plate.
You got me beat on that one. I do not have that yet. I might have to look into it. So we were speaking just a little bit before we got going, and you were telling me about you kind of took a unique path currently in life, which I enjoy. I have those who've been listening to the podcast for a while know I have a very eclectic path myself. But currently, you've got a foot in both camps. But tell us how that all started. What motivated you to go out and try for your PhD, enroll in that PhD program?
Yes, thank you for that question. First of all, dissertation done, that's a great concept in a business. I mean, coaching goes a long way in a lot of things, like exercise or financial planning, like I do and everything like that. So having a coach in there, that's a great idea. So I'm sure people really appreciate the services that you offer.
Yeah, I think that it's something that folks need to be comfortable with. A lot of folks that are doctoral students, entrepreneurs face this too. It's something we call imposter syndrome, where you think that's not really who I am. And a lot of folks think maybe I'm not at that level, that doctoral level. And instead of saying, no, that's me, and I'm going to make it happen, and getting a coach maybe to help them through, like executives would, or top athletes would, they try to do it themselves. And really, really successful people always get somebody to help them, not because they need the help necessarily, but because they know that help gives you shortcuts. It guarantees success. Why make it harder on yourself? Life's already hard enough, right?
For sure. Yes. I mean, so that's a really good segue into my why. I mean, pursuing a PhD is challenging. It's challenging, but however, I wanted to, my transition from the private sector to academia, and now I do both as an entrepreneur and also an academic. But mine was about a dream, simply put. And I know some of these things sound cliche, you say the P word, which is passion, well, but, or what's your why? It matters. It matters, though. And one of the things that I wanted to do back in 2016, after I left my last employer, was to dream up. I knew that I could move horizontally in my career. I knew that, and it paid a nice chunk of change, and I knew I could have, and I was going to go slightly up the ladder as well, not just on money, but just on having. I was a mutual fund wholesaler at the time, and I was traveling the country, having relationships with advisors and their firms across the country. And it was great. And I was probably going to move up and get a bigger opportunity to manage a region at my next move with a couple of large firms. I had the opportunity, but I was just like, I wanted to see what I could do. I could really do, and I all else equal, right? We're talking about dissertations. All else equal, I wanted to see what I could do vertically. What was my dream? And I was like, okay, this is the opportunity to do it. And one of those was to pursue a doctoral degree and help fuel the things that I wanted to do, become a speaker, become a researcher, business owner, practitioner, and all that. So to do all that, this was one of the ways to do it.
Yeah, and when you talk about moving up vertically, if you want to take those big jumps, if you want to really move, you might be able to do it over a long arc of a career. But generally speaking, you've got to go out on your own. You've got to take that risk. You got to develop a little entrepreneurial spirit. And when I say entrepreneur, that doesn't mean you have to create like the next new thing like Uber or something like that kind of didn't exist before they came along. It just means that you're going out there and you're taking personal responsibility for your own success. You're not part of a big team like you would be in a corporate environment where you're contributing to the team's success. You're out there pretty much on your own, or you're the leader of a smaller team that is responsible for your success. So that's a tough decision for a lot of folks. But certainly having that Ph.D. credential helps you solidify that expertise when you meet new folks.
Yeah, it does. And one of the things I wanted to say too is I wanted to impact people, not only on the client level, but students too. That's why I'm teaching as well. So I left that one out. I love mentoring, and what you're doing with Dissertation Done and what happened in my life, and we'll get to that kind of story, which always a running theme is mentorship. Without any guidance, obviously I have my parents. They've been married 42 years now, and outside, and they're pretty young too. My dad just retired, so they have a fruitful life ahead of them. And so I was fortunate to have them and my sister around, so we have a close knit family, and that was the foundation. However, once I got to undergrad and finished, I started really getting mentors then. And even my father at the time, he said, well, no, he's still my father, but at that point in my life, he said, we've done all we can do. You're going to, it's these people's turn now, your mentors to take you on to another level. Right. And so I just wanted to say that about impact and what I wanted to do too.
It's important that we find that a lot of the doctoral students, I talk with doctoral students all the time, and so many of the doctoral students I talk to, it is about, and you talk about cliche or something, maybe sounding a little hokey, it's about making the world a better place. They're out there wanting to serve people, to make their lives better, which is kind of why I do what I do with Dissertation Done, because I feel like if I can get more students to that point where they're now doctors and they can do this to help in their communities, then that's me helping out too.
And I would say, and I would touch on what you were saying earlier to bring it back to what you were introducing as far as our segue, is that, if you want to be an academic, that's great. It's all about what you want to do, aspire to do. If you like to work at a company, that's great. Not everybody has to have this entrepreneurial quote unquote spirit. I mean, it's overdone a lot. It's like, okay, if you don't do this, then you're not really dreaming big, and you're not really doing that. And it's discounting those folks that have other avenues in life.
Right.
It is about personal preference. It is about where you best fit. It is about your own personal journey. So I don't like to discount folks that may not have a and I know it's not what we're trying to do, but I just want to emphasize, hey, it's okay if we're in this journey to crunch the numbers and all that. That's what our passion is, and that's great.
And that's 100%. I agree with you 100%. I was saying if that's your goal is to really move vertically.
Oh yeah.
That's generally the way that you do it, is by going out and having that entrepreneurial spirit. If you like being part of that team and having that structure and being able to do, quite honestly, for most people, more in a sense, as part of it, in a corporate environment, you can be responsible for a little piece of a huge thing. Whereas when you're on your own, you can be responsible for a bigger piece of what's ultimately going to probably be a smaller thing. You can still help people either way. So it is about you and your choices. And the thing that the Ph.D. or a doctoral degree in general does is it multiplies those choices. The opportunities just sprout out of the ground, it seems like, for some folks after they graduate.
Sure. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, just like the license plate, Dr. Cherry just sounded cool. And my niece, she thought it sounded cool too. And that's another thing. She's kind of my inspiration a little bit too. I had a lot of inspirations, but she was a big part of it. She's 12 now, and she's just so curious. And for her to see her uncle, achieve something, she doesn't necessarily have to go down that path. I don't. It's like some sports parents tend to force sports, on their children. No, it just gives them the opportunity. It says, okay, if you dream it, or if this is what you choose to do, and you aspire to, then you can do it. So she said, she goes, I love universities. I've taken her on a couple of tours and all that. And she's like, Texas Tech, that's where I graduated from. And she was like, they have a aquatics program. I didn't even know what aquatics were at 12, but she does.
Yeah, that's true. That's awesome.
So
I tell a lot of our students have that as a part of their reason why too, is they want to inspire, whether it's their kids or something else. But one of the things that I talk to doctoral students a lot is this idea of normative pressure. Of most doctoral students don't know another doctoral student. They don't know anybody else that's working on their dissertation at the same time they are. They may have met somebody in an online class or something like that, but to really know them and to be connected with them on a daily basis, most doctoral students don't have that. And it makes it very difficult to get up and do your dissertation when you're supposed to be doing it.
That is
your need to see, hey, my uncle was able to get his dissertation done and graduate, and he's Dr. Cherry. That creates that little normative, and I don't want to use the word pressure necessarily here, but it like you said, it shows that it can be done. She knows somebody who got his doctoral degree at this point, and she also knows who you are, right? So she's like, heck, if Uncle Preston can do it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So and that really helps, because we're all people, like you were alluding to earlier, and for people, the younger generation, to see folks with their doctoral degrees that they know helps them think that might be an opportunity for them. And whether that's a choice they want to make or not is irrelevant. I mean, they get to make their own choices, but to know that that's an opportunity for them, that they don't have to feel like they're stretching so much necessarily to do that, because they know people that they can relate to that have done it.
Right.
It's really powerful.
And you made a great point just a minute ago, which was while you're in it, getting the degree, the process, I was fortunate to have several friends that have already been through the process.
That's good.
And I asked for advice.
Your success, or for your mental health, even going through that process.
Absolutely. I asked for advice. And one thing about coaching, no, for real. I mean, one thing
it's
about
hard.
To ask, it takes courage to ask and admit. It really does. And it's not that's another myth. I mean, it's for sure not a weakness. It is a strength.
It is.
To say, hey, listen, I need some help. Can I talk to you? What are your thoughts? And then just sit back and take some advice, take some direction.
Right.
And I tell you what, I wasn't good at that earlier in my life.
But if you get through a doctoral degree program, I think you get good at it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to get good at it. If you go through a doctoral degree program, because it does require you to grow, and growth is hard.
I'll give you a quick story. I was in a class, and it was my first. What was it? It was the research one. We had R1 and R2. So It was when we started getting into the paper writing process after we had all the courses and everything. Oh man. And I tell you, coming from the professional world, I thought I could write a little bit. Yeah.
And you could write a little bit, but it was for a different audience, right? It's a different way of writing is the thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And when I came in there and I started writing those rough drafts, and when we started writing and we started with the introduction and we were getting into the lit review, and oh my goodness, our instructor, she still is fearless, and I appreciate now what she put us through.
Right.
Which was, this is crap. With a big X on it. It was like, no, do this, do that. But my pride, right? It did take a hit, and I was like, okay, I know I was clear here. What did you not see?
Right.
And that wasn't the wrong reaction. It was just the first reaction.
Right.
But as I started going through the process, I was like, okay, let me sit back and learn, because obviously this is what this is all about. Right. It's about learning how to write an academic paper. What is the process and all that? So I needed to take some constructive feedback, and even some chairs or even directors of programs, it may not be constructive at the time. It may not seem constructive, but it ends up being constructive.
We have students all the time who get this feedback from their committee, and it's like telling them what's wrong and what they need to fix and things like that. And I try to help them understand that even though your committee might be using that language, don't be hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Don't have that negative self-talk, because a lot of what folks are facing when they get to the dissertation, now not with your first academic writing, but when you get to the dissertation, it's not they're doing things wrong. It's just that you've got to figure out what your committee wants and give that to them, because everybody's going to want something a little different. If you switch out a member of your committee when your dissertation was halfway done, and everybody on the committee was happy with it and cheerleading and saying, go Preston, and you switch out a committee member, all of a sudden he's going to be like, wait, there's some problems here. Not because there was anything wrong, but because that's not exactly what he wanted to see. Somebody else helped you build that. So that's from a mental health standpoint for folks to remember that when your committee says something wrong, most of the time it's not wrong. It's just not what they want. And you gotta get it to where they want what they want to see.
Yes, spot on. Which is, the number one goal is trying to finish.
Yes.
I mean, people
that was your number one goal. That was my number one goal. Most of the folks in this audience, it's probably their number one goal. But again, everybody gets to make choices. So if your number one goal is to solve a particular problem and you just want to work on that, and that's your passion and that's where you want to be, that's fine. But do understand that if you're doing that, you're not trying to graduate as soon as possible. Graduating as soon as possible is a choice, and everything else has to be secondary if that's what you want to do. Most of the folks I talk to, that's what they want to do, but it's okay if you don't. If you want to take it slow, if you want to enjoy the journey, then that's okay. It's just that you'll be a little alone in that process.
Right. And it's about compromise. As you were alluding to, when some people want to do primary data research and that, which is fine, particularly with the advent of what's the Amazon thing? I can't think of it right now. But anyway, you can procure data fairly quickly now. I wouldn't say quickly, because then you have to get it approved and all that. So it's still you have to build the framework, the questioning. You have to find the
okay. Right? So when you're talking about Amazon being able to distribute your survey so that people will come and fill out your instrument. Right. Okay.
Yes.
I know they do that, but I don't remember what they call that.
Oh gosh.
Right on the top. Don't want folks to do that because you don't know who your audience is, who your sample is really. So I'm not familiar with it, but I know that they do it.
Yeah, it's actually becoming more and more of a go-to. I mean, it's really a go-to for collecting that primary data. But my point about that is like there's a process of collecting primary data, even just a little bit of it. And my point is I was told or suggested to many times, like, okay, yes, you can go down and try to research your passion and whatnot. That's after. That's after, and you do have to have to know how to work with your committee.
Yes.
On my particular committee, I had I would say issue, but I had a couple of opinions about theory,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that my theory was spot on, and I put a lot of time into developing that theory. And as a matter of fact, it was the right theory. The story wasn't told correctly. So that whole paragraph and a half or a page that I had on theory, they're like, and we had to go back and forth. So, but I had to realize it's like, okay, well, once I look back at it, I had to say, okay, yeah, they were correct, but I had to just take that. Yeah. And I think if I'd had a different approach at first, I could have saved myself maybe a week or two by really, listening to what they were saying. But my mission was always trying to finish at my own time, so to speak. But I wanted to finish. I didn't want to let it draw out. So with that, I wasn't researching some sort of world-changing
right.
world-changing idea. I simply wanted to know how to get through the process of writing a paper, which that is the goal of a PhD program, is to show you, can you get through a paper writing process on your own, and can you show everybody that you know how to write one and don't make the school look stupid? Yeah. That's basically it.
It goes back to, so the dissertation process actually started in the Middle Ages. And back then, the way they taught was through this master-apprentice relationship, where somebody would work at the foot of the master for a number of years, starting off by sweeping the stalls or whatever, but working up to doing the master's work, and under some supervision, until eventually they were doing it without supervision. They would create this masterpiece, and they would be told, okay, now you can go into the guild. You are able to go out on your own, make your own way, and you're no longer an apprentice. Same thing actually happens in the dissertation process. That is your masterpiece, so to speak. You're going out there and saying, look, I can do this. I created this myself. And if it looks like the right sort of thing, then they're going to approve it and tell you can go out and now start doing that on your own without supervision. Mm-hmm. And so you touched on another very important point when we were talking about passions. And listen, if your goal is to graduate as soon as possible, then you need to be strategic about everything in the dissertation process. And that starts with your topic and how you're going to set things up. You want to make sure that it's not some sort of exploration, because you never know what you're going to get when you explore. You never know when you're done if you're exploring. You want to have something that has a specified beginning, middle, and end, so that you can actually get through it. And that's strategic. You have to make sure you're thinking about that ahead of time, because so many people will fall into kind of following their passions, and then you become all emotionally involved and entrenched and intractable, instead of being ready to compromise. And when your committee says do it this way, you just say, yes, I'll do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I tried to be strategic with my approach, particularly the last year and a half. And we were introduced to our topic, so to speak. We could pick it, or we actually, there was a hat, and you could pull your topic out of the hat, actually. Wow. Or you could come up with one, you just had to. It had to be within the realm of, the department, and you had to be able to say, you had to formalize it. Did it make sense? Because somebody's like, oh, no, that's not a good idea. Maybe they would say, no, let's try something else. So really, there's an art, as we all know, there's an art to coming up with a question.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is well, what a lot of people don't like is go back and read some more. So you read enough articles, and then some ideas will pop up into your head.
Yeah.
Now, when I started the research 1 and 2 classes, and I had the topic, you can, in our particular program, and this probably sounds familiar to some, you can finish those classes, and that doesn't have to be your dissertation topic.
Right.
That said, I wanted mine to be, because I didn't want to clean another data set.
Right? You got to take those classes anyway, but if you can get a little extra benefit out of those classes going into your dissertation, why not? Right.
I didn't want to clean another data set.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, and I was already getting all the data set. Oh my goodness. And I didn't want to, I was already ahead on feedback, because I had been getting it for a year on this topic. And that left me another, good 12 months or whatever it was I was already ahead in the feedback game.
Right.
I didn't have to start from scratch, developing the question and all that. Oh man. So that's how I took my approach. My approach was to finish.
And if you are a doctoral student earlier in the process, you're not working on your dissertation yet, you're still taking classes. We actually will guide students through the strategy of doing this. So feel free to reach out to us and we can talk about whether it's a good fit. But there are ways that as you're going through your classes, if you've got a dissertation topic in mind, and I don't have time today to talk about exactly how you do all of that. You were alluding to the fact that it's involved. But if you have a dissertation topic in mind, you can actually go through a lot of your classes and you have some flexibility in those classes, usually about how you're going to complete those assignments. You can do that with your dissertation topic in mind and start to build up this same sort of head start that Dr. Cherry was just talking about in your own project. So even if you don't have those classes, with the research classes giving you that head start, you can begin at least understanding the literature and developing a framework for how you want to proceed with your dissertation by looking at your dissertation topic through these various lenses that your classes represent. So something to think about if you happen to be a little earlier in the process right now.
Absolutely. And I hope I'm not spilling too many of the beans of your coaching framework, because I know it's very intricate and beneficial and specific. I'll share something that helped me that I started a little bit too late, but oh man, I got good at it toward the end.
Yeah.
Which was simply building a file system.
Okay.
To capture research. And I started early. I started a little later than I wanted to.
Right.
But having a thorough file system, I have about 50 folders, and they're very topical. So right. when I researched and found an article, now this sounds familiar, where you wrote a paragraph, and I used to. And I still do this because you never stop, researching. So I'm doing this from other papers as well. Now I'm starting to write for publication. But I'd write a paragraph, and then I'd write 3 sentences of what I think I could find or prove or at least support in research, and there'll be placeholders.
Yes.
And I know that those 4 sentences, I know I have to go get those somewhere.
Right.
All right. So if I read a paper and I scan through and I didn't find anything to plug in there, that paper can either be discarded, right, or it has enough in there that I may use in the future. So that's going in the folder, and I don't want to look for that again. Right.
You want to know what folder it goes into, so that when later on you're saying, hey, I had this point that I was trying to make that I know is true. Who can back me up here? I'm going to go to that folder and find out who might be able to back me up. Yeah, that's very smart. We do a similar thing with folks going through their lit review, but I'll tell you, Dr. Cherry, when you're saying, hey, I don't want to give away, spill too many of the beans here, spill away. One of my authors, when I was starting out in business, he's a consultant, a business consultant, and he said that it amazed him for a while, and then he just got used to it, that organizations would pay him $10 for his book and then turn around and pay him $10,000 to read it to them. Because that's what coaching and consulting is all about, is that, yeah, we can tell you all the theory, we can tell you exactly how everything works, but then to have somebody who can come in and actually kind of do it for you, or point to you and say, do this exact thing in your situation, is very, very helpful. So there's always going to be people who will take the advice that we give them out here today, and they'll take that to heart and they'll run with it. And there's going to be other people that they're going to say, you know what, I can get a whole lot more out of it if I have a relationship with somebody that knows this stuff and that can help me understand how it applies to what I'm doing. Because another point here is that I'm in a mastermind with other folks that run businesses, and it's amazing how many times I can be a genius telling them what they need to do in their business because I can see it so clearly. And then they turn around and they're a genius telling me what I need to be doing because I can't see it worth a darn. So it's hard to see your own thing sometimes, and getting some external advice on something that you're very, very close to can be very, very, very helpful.
That's a great point. It takes courage to go through what I call and I use this for my practice as well, but I think it just works well in life. And this is one of them too, to where I call it a personal audit. Yeah. You have to be able to have that courage to go through a personal audit and reflect a little bit. Because that story I just shared earlier, there's tons of those, and I'm sure you have them as well. But that one I shared is like my first couple of feedbacks that I got or received from that class, I didn't like that at all. I'm gonna tell you that right now. No. I did not like it. I got my feelings hurt. I was upset. And, you've seen those probably memes or GIFs or something like that, where you're writing a text message and you go with your first emotion and you start writing curse words at the beginning. You start backing it out a little bit. Yeah. And listen, so it's okay to have those emotions.
Absolutely.
Then it's also, what is the next step? Let's step back from that a little bit.
Yeah.
And every time that I've done that, it seems to have been beneficial.
Yeah. So I had, when I first went to graduate school at the University of Chicago, very, very tough program, very, very hard, top tier program. First test I took, I'm trying to remember what it was exactly, but I got an F on that test. And by my measures, by my accounting, it was a 50-something or 60-something, whatever it was horrible. And the professor, passed out all the tests. He's like, listen, I'm really pleased with how you guys did. I was like, oh, everybody else did fine. Like the average was, and I was above average. I was like, what is this man talking about? And it's just one of those things where you got to know that it's at a different level for a lot of folks. When you get into a doctoral level program, it's at a different level. And they can say, hey, you've got a long way to go, but I'm happy with where you're starting out. You're doing well so far. Just understand you're nowhere close to being there.
Where you need to be. Yeah.
And so that was the message I took home from that was that, well, like I said, if we had phones back then, I would have been doing the little curse words going into the text message to start with, because I was like, I'd never seen a grade like that come back on one of my papers. And I just thought, oh, I got to pack up and go home.
Right. And I would say too, because you had mentioned mental health a little bit too.
Yeah.
During the dissertation process, these programs are doing this process. This process can be a lot of competition, but they shouldn't be.
Right.
They shouldn't be, and that's going to help mental health too. In my opinion, it helped me. Yes. I was involved with my cohort, so to speak.
Right.
That's one of those words that I swear if I never hear again, I'm good. Because everybody was just cohort. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear that. I used to wake up days just not to hear cohort, the word. But yes, I mean, you do go through, that group that you came in with. Some of them are going to make it, some of them are not. But so many people see this as some sort of zero-sum competition. And I mean, it's good competition if you just want to make each other better, iron sharpens iron type of thing.
Right.
But there's so much of, what is this person doing? What is this person doing? Is that that person doing this? That it's your own lane. Figure that out, because once that starts getting into, then you start getting interdepartmental. The walls are thin, because you're going back to those rooms every day for 4 years, 3 to 4 years. All right, the campus can be huge. All right, but you're going, if you're on campus, you're online too. But if you're going on campus, you're going back to just those 6 halls.
Right.
So you drive yourself crazy trying to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak.
Right. Now, I think for most of the folks that I talk to, that's not a real problem, but certainly it's a good point that this is not about what someone else is doing. This is about your dreams, your aspirations, your journey, and being true to that. If if there are other people around you, I want you to draw strength from the fact that there are other people around you. They're going through this same sort of thing. They're having the same problems you're having. And when they overcome them, that should give you strength and resolve that you can overcome them.
And you will get a lifelong friend out of the process.
Yeah,
that is a guarantee. Your cohort may be 5, it may be 10, it may be 15. I don't know, but I think ours started out as 12, I believe, and I think 7 of us made it at different stages.
That's awesome.
It's a process. It's definitely and it doesn't mean if somebody doesn't make it, that doesn't mean that they were less than either. Things are just a good fit or they're not a good fit. It just depends. Right. I will guarantee that you may not be friends lifelong friends with the whole group, but there will be one or two where, and I took a couple out of mine. I found my future fiance out of the group, and I also found I found a great friend. Yeah, two of them actually, and one of them that's just for sure. So
and as you mentioned that you had about half of your cohort graduated. Those seem to be the numbers that hold over a lot of departments, over a lot of disciplines. That about half of the folks graduate. So when you say doesn't mean that they were less than. Some folks do move away because of changes in their goals and what they want to do. But a lot of folks, I think it comes down to kind of luck almost as to whether you happen to get a good fit with your committee, you happen to find a good advisor and a good mentor. And it's important not to let it be luck as to who might be assigned as your mentor or who your advisor might be. Whether it's someone like me specifically who helps people professionally, or whether it's someone else that you can find in your community. Make sure that you have a mentor or an advisor that can be there to kind of answer questions for you, support you, keep your head screwed on straight that, hey, yeah, this is tough. You're going to struggle, but you can still do this. If you have your fiance, your significant other, your parents telling you can do it, and they've never done it themselves, that's going to ring hollow at some point for most people. We've had research done on this. One of our students did a project on that,
Okay.
And it rings hollow for people if someone's if your mom's always telling you can do it and she never did it herself. But you find somebody else who can be there for you. Say, yeah, I did that. I know what you're talking about. I know I went through it, and yes, I'm looking at you. I know you can do it. It's so important.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the primary difference between the 7 that you said graduated and the 5 that didn't. Is having that touch tone and someone to keep them moving forward, probably.
Yeah, and I would somewhat agree with that. And I would say that if you get to the dissertation stage, at least this is how it was for me, is that dissertation gave me more control of my outcome.
Yeah.
All the way up until then, there was a lot of subjectivity. Either it came from the instructors or the process, everybody's trying to get a feel, they know what it looks like. Okay, well, it's all subjective at that point. Once I got past the qualifying exam, that was the hardest point for me in my process. I mean, having that cumulative,
right?
One day, whatever we taught you at this point is fair game. we don't.
It's tough, isn't it?
Oh my goodness!
Oh my goodness!
Oh my! That is so.
A lot of our students don't go through that anymore. They have to write a series of papers or something like that. But yeah, I remember we had tests one day, and the next week, anything that you didn't do well on that written test, they were coming after you on the oral exam.
Oral. We had that.
Figure out what you didn't do right. They're not going to tell you. You just had to know when you were filling out the paper. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I better figure it out before they come after me next week. I remember that big time.
Yes, that was the pivot point for me, and for me, I knew that there was 2 places where, and I guess this is another good piece of advice if folks want it, is figuring out what what my weaknesses are. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily and I had this discussion the other day with another a professional friend of mine, and it was a good point. And not necessarily use your weaknesses to make them better at the sacrifice of your strengths. Know what they are so they won't be barriers.
Right.
Because you want to be good at what you're good at, and you want to do that so at such a high level that it will give you benefit. Spending more time trying to make better your weaknesses, that comes at a cost of
exactly.
What you should be doing. Yeah,
a lot of people have this problem that they think they can't have any weaknesses, or they've got to fix those weaknesses. Listen, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, those guys do not do their taxes, right? That's not their strength. Maybe they might be good at math, but probably not. That's not their strength. They have a different strength, and they got really, really good at what they were strong at that strength. And they leverage that to propel them to heights that most of us can only dream of reaching. Mm-hmm. So when you find what you're good at, leverage that strength. Don't worry about the fact that you've got a weakness over here. Nobody else will worry about it.
Just don't let it be a barrier.
That you can provide. to the world with your strengths.
Yeah, just don't let it be a barrier. And for me, it was statistics. I was 20 years removed from stats. 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was actually pretty good back in, hey, listen, junior, senior year, high school, a little bit of college. Oh, man. And particularly in high school, I didn't take a math course because I went to community college first, and then I went to the university. But when I got reintroduced to stats, it was 3.5, almost 4 years after high school. When I left high school, I was at college level math. I was doing stats and everything on the back of, I was doing it by hand. That wasn't by kid in the hand. And but when I went back, I lost some of that. And then just imagine that's just 4 years. Now then I went another 14, 15, 16, whatever it was. And, they started, throwing the the stat language back at me again. And
I remember that.
I was like, whoa.
Really?
But you know what? I partnered with someone. And I partnered with someone. I was like, okay, as long as I can just get through. And listen, also, too, here's another thing. And somebody shared me with this. I'm sure it's probably academic wide. So forgive me if I'm not discovering something new or whatever. Somebody told me this. B's get degrees. B's get degrees, meaning, hey, sometimes, and this goes to the process, and this happened to me. Whereas, listen, I needed to get a B in stats. I didn't need to get an A. So I was in a semester where I had a couple of classes where they needed my attention. Right. They needed, and I needed to just get through maybe stats in order to heighten or elevate the other classes. Sometimes all A's are not possible in a particular semester, and as I look at it, there's no GPAs for me. They stop mattering because there's no GPA on my Ph.D. degree.
Yeah, that's right. You're not going to find a whole lot of people. Maybe if you're in certain circles in academia, you might find this, but you're not going to find a whole lot of people that are asking, well, what was your GPA in your doctoral degree? You're not going to find a whole lot of people even asking what you wrote your dissertation on unless you're in academia. By the time they say that you're Dr. So-and-so, they're deferring to you. It's one of those we're not worthy kind of things for most people because 99% of the population doesn't have that doctoral degree. You just finish that and you're good.
Also, too, if I can interject too here, too, is like if you do have I don't even like the word weakness, but if you have something that you're less good at, okay, that also helps the next stage of your career, academic career, because now we're getting into research teams. Right. We have I have friends right now. There's probably I know about 3 or 4 research teams. They know each other well. They pump out a lot of publications. It's because they have a team of 5. And somebody's good at cleaning data, somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that, and they got them a nice rhythm. So we don't have to be excellent at everything. Yes, for me, statistics, can I interpret them? Yes. Do I know about a few models? Yes. Do I know about 15 different models? No. So if somebody specializes in a model that I don't know much about, okay, well, then we'll partner up and let you learn about it.
Project. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, let's talk a little bit, Dr. Cherry, in the time that we have left about what happened after the journey, because everybody relates to the journey that's in in the middle of it right now. But you defended your dissertation. Congratulations, Dr. Cherry. What does the world look like to you at that point?
It was a land of opportunity for me. I tell you, I was so happy. As a matter of fact, as soon as I got ABD, I started all but dissertation. Right. I started looking for positions, and so I took that semester to do so. And I was teaching. I was a TA as well. So that's another thing. Mine, the workload. I forgot all about that. We didn't even talk about that.
No, that's big time.
Yeah, that's big time. TA, and also not even a TA. Sometimes leading your own class, which I did for a year and a half. Yeah. Along with taking other classes, along with writing, and also I started a business as when I was in. That was a lot too. But 3 years later, I'm happy because I have my run rate and everything like that. But yeah, that's what happened for me. Is like, listen, I always thought about academia. First of all, I've grown to appreciate and want to do more research. I didn't think I was going to be that way when I first came in, but and now I do want to do the research. I'm submitting 3 for publication here in about a month or so, or to see how that works. Yeah, I always thought that academia, and still do, academia is going to be my fixed annuity. All right. You know? So I wanted to, I really wanted to,
planner talking.
Right. I wanted to shore that up. But here's another thing. Those interviews, that process, that whole semester, I took a semester to look for positions. Going on the higher ed education website and looking. It's an art, just looking for a position, really, to know how to decode certain things and all that type of stuff. I ended up going on 4 or 5 campus visits. I interviewed like 7 times, I think, and didn't make it the first 2 rounds. But anyway, I was busy flying there and all that stuff. That takes a lot. So that was my first eye opener. I was like, okay, now I've made it ABD. Now I know I have to do my dissertation because it takes a year in order to really find something, because the process is so long. Then that's when I started. So that was my first thing. That
was good.
Yep. So my second thing, what I already had started, which I alluded to, which just for me, I had come from being in the professional world, the private sector, and I'd already had professional contacts. I'd already been involved with my profession and all that, and I wanted to keep that up. So I didn't even mention the board work that I was doing during that time too. And everybody was, I think it was a betting ring on me whether I'd make it or not, because I had so much stuff going on.
Right.
Which I don't advise.
Also, those of you listening, don't do what Dr. Cherry did here.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Tough, man. That's a lot of plates to keep spinning.
That's a lot. So I was just about to, yes, you're right, Dr. Strickland, on that. I was just about to say that too. That is an outlier. So go ahead and Windsorize that outlier. Windsorize is not suggesting your research, but as far as this one is concerned, yes. But I just happen to have that. That was just my personal makeup. All right. And going back on it too, I wish I had more time and more even zeroed in focus so I could enjoy more the research. I would have had more participation. Say maybe I've gotten maybe a couple of small publications, right, something like that. Worked on a lit review, and I can tell you when I was there at Tech, and now that I have left, oh my goodness, the cohorts that came behind us, they're doing a fabulous job of getting a couple of publications, this, that, and so while they're there, because they didn't have as much as I did going on, but that was personal preference. But getting back on the question, so looking for a job, 1. Number 2, expanding my business, my practice. That's what I wanted to do. Also, zeroing in or trying to hone it, publishing the dissertations. That's also important. Getting that on the publication. Now I'm 6 months removed. I'm trying to publish submit mine right now so they can publish in the spring, and then try to come up with some sort of research agenda. Somebody suggested to me, don't make your research wide, make it narrow and deep.
Yeah.
And learning that right off the bat, that's the type of structure that will get your research agenda where you can get some things that you were talking about, Dr. Strickland, which was, hey, use those to repackage those, to write books, make presentations as speakers, become a subject matter expertise, all of that. And
you've got, like you mentioned before, you got a foot on both sides of the river, so to speak, with, academia and research. And we talked a lot about that, but then how does that help you on the business side in terms of your, number 1, your expertise to perceived value to folks, but number 2, actually being able to do things on that business side? How does the research and the Ph.D. and the work in academia help feed the other side for you?
Yes, that's another great question. And they do both. One does for the other. Right. And having been out practicing, that helped me with structure, stick-to-it-iveness, vision, all those soft skills that are necessary to get through the dissertation process. Whereas, someone was just, and again, that's just, sometimes it's just ability and personality traits and characteristics and whatnot. Some people have more so than others, and they just use upon their strength. However, if you just put that aside, there are things that you can learn being outside of academia and coming into academia that will help maximize the process that we've been talking about. And it sure did for me. I was able to compartmentalize. I was able to prioritize as well, and all the other I's, that you have. But I was able to do that because I had transferred some of the things I had into the private sector, into now academia. Also, I was aware and knowledgeable about my subject matter.
Right.
So I have a Ph.D. in personal financial planning. Okay, so I wasn't new coming into the concepts.
Right.
That familiarity with, the fundamentals and what was going on, that helped me. Now I was able to, it helped a lot. It helped a lot. And I kind of shared that with some of my peers that didn't have that, just because I wanted to help, and they helped me. Because that's where I didn't have, I was insufficient in some areas. They were sufficient in other areas, particularly with the research, formulating the question. I had all these ideas, all right, but I didn't know how to really structure it into a research question.
Yeah.
So, and then also too, it helped the other way.
Podcast a while ago, he found out that his research. So he runs an organization that helps school districts with setting up codes of conduct for their employees. And his dissertation, he was actually researching in that area. And he found out that he could take that research and he could then apply it to what he was doing in his business. And he had a mature business. I mean, it had been around for a while when he started his doctoral program. But once he had earned his doctoral degree, and he started being able to tell them how the concepts that he was sharing with them and what his organization does for these districts was research backed, his business took off again.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. That type of communication, and expertise, you can market that all day long, all day long. And it does give you, at least it did for me, it gave me a almost an improved way. I improved upon the way I was able to communicate to my clients or my audience about what the mechanisms that were behind or supporting the things that we hear out in the news as far as financial planning is concerned, and the theory and all that. Now, they're not going to want to listen to a regurgitation of an academic paper. Right. But if you're able to explain with a little bit more depth, the why and how this is connected a little bit, and be able to do that in a layperson's terms. Exactly. It makes a difference.
We had a thing when I was in, as an undergraduate, I was in physics and math was what I studied as an undergraduate. I have a very eclectic background, but we had something back then that we called the grandma theorem. And the idea was if you would learn something in your physics class and you could go explain it to your grandmother, then you knew it well enough that you really understood it, that you could, tell someone something and this is how it works, and they could understand it and they could give it back to you and say, well, that means this, this, and this. And they understand it. Then you understand it because you were able to transfer that knowledge. And I think that's very important. A lot of times folks, when they get into that PhD and dissertation level, they want to talk up here. But if you can talk to anybody, then that's when you really understand it. And that's also when you become a lot more marketable, when you can communicate to more people.
Yes. And I have a mentor right now that's able to do that. He is an expert in doing this, and he actually is intentional about what he does. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about this person is a phenomenal human being when it talks about research and his subject matter expertise. I don't get impressed often, but because and extraordinary and special people is kind of overused, but this is one of them. He is fabulous, and he's intentional about taking, just like what you said, the grandma theorem. Yeah, he's intentional about making all of his presentations 5th or 6th grade level, as far as its reading and his communication style. Right. He doesn't dumb it down to make people feel stupid. Right. It's just so clear that you don't have to know anything about what he's talking about. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. And yes, he's very successful.
When I talk stats to our students when we're going through and working on quantitative projects, we don't use words that they would hear in math class. Right. We're talking concepts. And, the only number we talk about is 5% because that happens to be the number we pick to say when something's significant or not. But other than that, it's all concepts, it's all words and images and things that make sense. We talk more about, how you would convict somebody in a criminal trial than we talk about, numbers and averages and things like that, because it's the concepts that are important. And when you understand those, you really can understand what other people are talking about with regard to anything, honestly.
Yes, absolutely. And I'll give a bookend to what you were just talking about, the profession helping the academic and the academic helping the profession. Remember on The Matrix?
Big movie buff, love it.
Oh, yes. Oh, man, the key maker. All right.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my goodness. You don't know when you were going to use it or how you were going to use it, but the key maker had a key for it.
Key for it, yep.
And it opened doors.
Right.
And it opened doors. And that's what the Ph.D., the doctoral degree does. It opens doors beyond measure, And so the doctoral process for me, I was the key maker, and I had my little, and now I'm starting to jingle it a little bit. I'm like, okay, opportunity presents itself. I'm like, I got a key for that.
Key for that. And it's kind of the master key, right? Because it opens all the doors when you have that doctoral degree. Even some doors you probably couldn't open. People will come and say, well, you got a doctoral degree. Let's talk. You're the expert. So that's a great point, Dr. Cherry. Let's I want to kind of wrap things up there. But before we go, I'd like for you to tell folks, how can they get in touch with you? Your personal finance, your company Concurrent, the work that you do in academics. If anybody wants to get in touch with you about any of it, what's the best thing for them to do?
Yes. Academically, I can be found at the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay. So just Google that along with my name, and it'll take you to my faculty page and my email address, which is cherryp@uwgb.edu. So you'll find it there. Okay. My company is Concurrent Financial Planning, really a life-centered financial planning type of company where we're matching your life up with your money, your life aspirations with your money goals, and figure out what you want to do in life first. Yeah. And the moniker is let your life lead your money, not your money lead your life. That's it.
That's awesome. That notion of being strategic about what you do is so important in everything. I mean, we talk about it with our dissertation students. You talk about it with your financial planning clients. It's really important. Take some time, not every day necessarily because you can't do that, but at least every quarter, take a day and think, where do I really want to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? And am I doing things that is contributing to that or not? Because so often we just are doing things and life just seems to come at us. And if you are intentional about what you're doing, you can make you can make a lot bigger decisions than you might think you can.
Absolutely. Well, I think I was saying it pretty well. You just said it even better. So thank you very much, Dr. Strickland. I appreciate that. And that's a good segue to where they can find me, which is Concurrent FP, which is for financialplanning.com. And you can also follow me at Twitter at Dr. Preston Cherry. I'm also at LinkedIn and Facebook as well.
Dr. Preston Cherry, concurrentfp.com. We'll drop that stuff in the show notes. So anybody who missed it, you can head over to our blog on dissertationdone.com and get the links there. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Cherry. Want to remind folks, once again, this episode has been brought to you by Dissertation Done. And if you're in the mode of getting ready to start on your dissertation, you're working on it, you're struggling with it, or you're just about fed up with it, see if we might not have a conversation. Go to dissertationdone.com/done. Our students typically graduate about 1 to 2 years faster than the other folks in their peer group. And if you would like to be in that group and fast track your dissertation, let's have a conversation. Go to dissertationdone.com/done. And if you are out there, you're an expert like Dr. Cherry, and you've got something to share with the world. The dissertation, the doctoral degree is the key, but in order for people to know that you're there, you've got to magnify, you got to amplify, and there's a great way to do that is by becoming a published author. We take our folks from a blank page, not even a concept, a blank page, all the way to being a published author in a lot less time than you might think it would take. Go to dissertation.com/book and see if that might be a good fit for you. Dr. Cherry, thank you again so much for joining me. I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Thank you for having me. Me too.
All right. And for everybody else, go out there and live your unconventional life. Have a great day.
Living an Unconventional Life. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe now to keep getting inspirational stories of unconventional lives as soon as they're released. Until then, go out and live your best unconventional life.